Having one unfriendly neighbor is bad enough. Imagine having half a dozen of them all around you. Now visualize one of them destabilized, and the misfortune is complete. That's quite how this week has been for India, with Bangladesh on the boil. In recent years, India's stature on the world stage is rather weird. We are overtaking one country after another in GDP size and are the world's fastest growing large economy. Yet, unemployment remains a serious concern. We have friends in high places, as in G20 colleagues, but have almost no friends in the neighborhood. And now, with Bangladesh in a pickle, some of our own snags have risen to the surface. Three of those bucks stand out. One, security. When Sheikh Hasina made a life-saving dash to India this week, what it immediately meant is more security on the long border with Bangladesh. A border that is more than 4,000 kilometers long. For context, the distance from Kanyakumari to Kargil is shorter at 3,800 kilometers. And this heightened security across the 4,000 kilometers Bangladesh border at a time when our security forces are constantly tackling terrorism in Jammu and Kashmir and losing many soldiers. No wonder we are forced to allocate bigger budgets each year for military spending. 4.71 trillion rupees in 2020, 4.78 trillion rupees 2021, 5.25 trillion rupees in 2022, 5.94 trillion in 2023, and this year our latest budget, 6.22 trillion, our highest ever. And that's not all. There is a bigger price to pay when we have pesky neighbors, like trade disruption, investment setback, communal tension, increased influx of terrorists and refugees, and of course, strained bilateral relations. After all, what can be as bad as being next door to a country which has neither a president nor a Supreme Court Chief Justice? 2. Inequality. Equality, they say, is more effective than the military in ensuring the safety of citizens. By that measure, we are not sitting pretty. The World Inequality Database shows that India's top 1%'s income share is among the highest in the world, higher than those of even South Africa, Brazil, and the US. Bangladesh also appeared to be shining, even beating India on per capita GDP, but GDP alone doesn't save a nation, as Bangladesh experienced this week. Just a few weeks ago, the New York Times wrote, "Behind Bangladesh protests, rage over inequality." 3. Jobs. Geopolitical analysts and experts are still deciding who could be gaining by destabilizing Bangladesh. But what we do know is how a court-approved quota for a particular category and the resultant student protests brought Bangladesh to this predicament. Now that has such a close resemblance to what we have in India. Quotas, then a creamy layer, and now quota within quota, when the Supreme Court recently allowed subclassification within scheduled castes and scheduled tribes categories to provide for reservation in jobs and education for the more marginalized among them. Just go back a year and remember how the Manipur clashes were triggered when the High Court directed the state government to pursue a recommendation to give scheduled tribe status to the Meitei community. Over a year later, Manipur still festers. A major cause for youth unrest anywhere is unemployment, a situation that India's youth are currently experiencing. Desperate for jobs, some of India's youth have, for instance, picked up jobs in the Russian army on their own or been duped into it and are fighting in a war with Ukraine. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar gave the numbers in the Lok Sabha this week. 91 Indians recruited into the Russian army, 14 have been discharged or have come back, 8 killed, and 69 still with the Russian army. The India Employment Report 2024 by the ILO and the Institute for Human Development says youth constitute 83% of the total unemployed in India. Little wonder some of them are risking their lives in the Russia-Ukraine war. This week, the Christian Science Monitor headlined an article on India's youth joblessness. Young, educated and jobless. Is India's unemployment crisis waiting to explode? It is in this context that we must measure the pain felt by millions of India's youth when a NEET or NET exam question paper leaks and the exam schedules are disrupted. Thank God all of this does not draw a straight parallel between Bangladesh and India, given India's sheer size, sprawl and diversity. Compared to Bangladesh, which is a country of 170 million people, which makes it smaller than Uttar Pradesh in population. India's striking advantage at the moment is a stronger opposition and thereby a more robust democracy after the recent election, in stark contrast to the oppressive regime that was ousted in Bangladesh. And if you haven't noticed, there is no more talk about a Congress Mukt Bharat. There's more space for dissent, and for frustrated youth, there are enough avenues for expression. After all, the best bet against getting to a Bangladesh-like situation is to have an inclusive and functional democracy. This episode of Geometric View salutes two mothers on either side of the perilous India-Pakistan border, Saroj Devi and Razia Parveen, respective mothers of the Paris Olympics javelin silver and gold medalists, Neeraj Chopra and Arshad Nadeem. Both the mothers said that the two boys were their own sons. These two mums may have done more for India-Pak relations in one stroke, more than what the two countries' leaders have done in months.